Announcement. I wish to acknowledge the presence of members of the National Association of University Students, Ekiti State University, Ado Ekiti, Ekiti State, staff and students of Shekinah International Academy, Maraba, Nasarawa State, who are all in our gallery to observe Senate proceedings. I wish them a fruitful observation of our Senate proceedings. Please sit down. Petitions? Yes, Senator David Umaru.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is David Umaru. I represent Niger East. I have a petition, Mr. President, from one Mr. Betasha Jemu Julius, and the petition is dated 9th March 2017. He's alleging shortfall in payment of gratuity and pension benefits. No legal intervention has been sought, and it seeks the intervention of the Senate to address this problem.
Come and read the petition. Second one
is by the Durumi and Nako communities in Amak. It is dated the 21st March 2017, and it is against the Ministry of the Federal Capital Territory, and it alleges indiscriminate destruction of farmlands, trespass, and arbitrary demolition of property. This one too has no legal matter pending, and they also seek the intervention of the Senate.
Yes, come and read the petition. Petition is referred to Ethics and Privileges. Report back in 2 weeks. Yes, point of order, Senator Dinumilai.
Mr. President, my very respected colleagues, Dino Milai, Kogi West. Mr. President, I draw inspiration this morning from Order 43. If I have your permission.
Go ahead.
By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may a debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, this morning, I bring to the notice of the Nigerian Senate the home and house of the Talakawas and the Mekunus of this country, that the road safety is proposing and about to implement a policy that will not go down well with the masses of this country. There's a proposal by the road safety to introduce speed limit device. And this device is to be sold to individuals by road safety. And if you have 2 cars, you will buy 2 devices, and it's to limit your, it's a speed limit device. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, this is not the time to bring economic hardship upon the already traumatized people of this country. In every civilized part of the world, it is the responsibility of road safety or agencies like her to mount speed limit device on roads. Then when you beat the speed, they either flash you down or go after you. But not to ask individuals to purchase speed device from road safety. And this is not even the time to do it. So in accordance with our calling to protect the masses of this country, I want to call on Mr. President so that the relevant committee that oversight function over road safety can intervene and stop this draconian move. I so submit, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator Dino, for the observation as part of our rules. There cannot be any further debate. And the committee on, I think it's rules, I think it's further characters, and Senator Tijani Kara will look into this matter at the committee level, and if they bring any report back to us. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Solomon Adiola on the Federal University of Technology, Ilaro Establishment Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Technology, Ilaro Establishment, etc. Bill 2017, SB 460, first reading.
Federal University of Technology, Ilaro Establishment, etc. Bill 2017, SB 460, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill in my name on the Federal University Gashua Establishment Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University Gashua Establishment, etc. Bill 2017, SB 459, first reading.
Federal University Gashua Establishment, etc. Bill 2017, SB 459, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Yusuf Abubakar on the Integrated Corporate Data Management Commission Establishment Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Integrated Corporate Data Management Commission Establishment, etc. Bill 2017, SB 461, first reading.
Integrated Corporate Data Management Commission Establishment, etc. Bill 2017, SB 461, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Umar Urfi on the Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria Act Cap A7 LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria Act Cap A7 LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2017 SB 463, first reading.
Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria Act, Cap A7 LFN 2004, Amendment Bill 2017, SB 463, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Solomon Adiola on the Federal University of Technology Yaba Establishment Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Technology Yaba Establishment, etc. Bill 2017, SB 464, first reading.
Federal University of Technology Yaba Establishment, etc. Bill 2017, SB 464, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the sixth business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Petroleum Upstream, Petroleum Downstream, and Gas on the Petroleum Industry and Governance Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Omotayo Alashadura, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Alashadura.
Mr. President, sir, distinguished colleagues, my name is Tayo Alashuadura, representing the people of Ondo Central Senatorial District of Ondo State. I rise to move that the Senate do receive the report of the Joint Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream, Downstream Petroleum Sector and Gas on the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2017. I so move.
Senator Geshem Bassi, Cross River South.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gershom Bassi, Cross River South Senatorial District. I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive the report of the Joint Committees on Petroleum Upstream, Petroleum Downstream, and Gas on the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2017. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the report of the Joint Committee on Petroleum Upstream, Petroleum Downstream, and Gas on the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2017 SB 237. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Lashaja, come and lay the report. Thank you, Senator Lashadra. I'm sure we're all proud to have taken the journey of the petroleum PIB bill. It has never gone this far before. I think we're all proud that we have gone this far and finally break this jinx. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the seventh business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Third Fund on the Maritime University of Nigeria, occurring COCO, Establishment Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Barau Jibrin, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
He's not there. Who is his? Who is his deputy?
Mr. President, in the absence of Senator Barau, I move that we will step down the presentation of the report till another legislative day.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that we step down that report to the next legislative day. That's the second.
Those in favor that we do step down this item on other paper to another legislative day, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the eighth business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petition in respect of A, petition from Hyacinth Ohoronye against the Nigeria Police Force for alleged wrongful dismissal from the force. B, petition from Collins Chinyaram Odegu against Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation NDIC for alleged wrongful dismissal from the corporation. And C, petition from ex-corporal Kamal Haruna against the Nigeria Police Force for alleged unjust dismissal from the force. Mr. President, you may wish to invite very distinguished Senator Samuel Anyau, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Samayan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Samayan. I represent Imo East in Imo State. With the leave of Mr. President of the Senate, I move that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions in respect of A, petition from Ms. Hyacinth Ohoronye against Nigerian Police Force for alleged wrongful dismissal from the force. B, petition from Mr. Collins Chinonyerem Udogo against Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, for alleged wrongful dismissal from the corporation. C, petition from ex-corporal Kamal Haruna against Nigerian Police Force for alleged unjust dismissal from the force. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Gamadi. Senator Gamadi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Barnabas Gamade. I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive the report of the Ethics Committee on the petition so listed as eloquently presented by Chairman Senator Samuel Anyao. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the reports of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petition as listed by the Chairman of Ethics, those in favor that will receive this report say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Samayo, come and lay the report. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the ninth business of the day is the presentation of the report of the ad hoc committee on the Southern Kaduna crisis and other parts of the country. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Kabir Gaya, chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report. I don't know whether someone is. Is there anybody who?
Senator Mao Huabana.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, my name is Senator Mao Aruko Huabunwa, representing the entire people of Abia North Senatorial District. Mr. President, on behalf of the Ad hoc Committee on Southern Kaduna Crisis on other parts of the country, I move that the Senate do receive the report of the Ad hoc Committee on Southern Kaduna Crisis and other parts of the country. I move.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you very much, distinguished President. My name is Nelson Effiong, and I speak for the great people of Akwa Ibom South. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive the report of the Ad hoc Committee on Southern Kaduna Crisis and other parts of the country. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the report of the Ad hoc Committee on Southern Kaduna Crisis and other parts of the country say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Mao, come and play the report. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Peter Nwabushi on the monumental challenges facing the presidential amnesty program due to paucity of funds. Mr. President, you wish to invite Senator Peter Nwabushi to move the motion.
Senator Peter Nwabushi.
Distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, my name is Senator Peter Nwabushi, representing the good people of Anyama of Delta North of Delta State. Distinguished colleagues, this is a motion on the monumental challenges facing the Presidential Amnesty Program, PAP, due to paucity of funds. Note with serious concern the monumental challenges facing the Presidential Amnesty Program, PAP, due to paucity of funds to run the program, arising from delayed and staggered release of funds from the 2016 Appropriation Act by the Federal Ministry of Finance. Concerned that this is already threatening the well-conceived amnesty program of the federal government as the Amnesty Office is finding it extremely difficult to meet its obligation to its workers and beneficiaries of the Amnesty Program. Note that the Amnesty Program was conceived by the federal government of Nigeria to stem the tide of disaffection, agitation, and militancy in the Niger Delta area, which resulted in loss of lives, properties, and oil revenue, and the result of the program has been quite encouraging. Worried that funds appropriated for the program have been depreciating steadily, leading to adverse impact on the operation of the program as tension is already building up in the Niger Delta region. Worried that 30,000 beneficiaries of 65,000 monthly allowance are being owed 5 months in arrears. And on the education program onshore, the debt to universities in the country is in the sum of 1.8 billion naira, in addition to lacking the backlog of unpaid in-training allowance amounting to 830.5 million naira, while the educational program offshore is suffering the same fate as unpaid in-training allowances for 750 students between 2016 and 2017 amounted to $4.2 million US, equivalent of 1.332 billion naira. An unpaid tuition fee for 350 students amounted to the sum of 17.5 million US, equivalent of 512.500 naira. Note also that in 2016, the vocational training unpaid project to train 1,770 due to lack of funds, and worse still, many people are pressurizing to be included in the amnesty program, failure for which they are threatening to go back into agitation and militancy, which they have earlier renounced. Concern also that 70% of the 337 students in the various institutions in 27 countries who are expected to graduate at the end of 2016-2017 academic year may not be able to do so for non-payment of tuition fees, and currently more than 80% have been excluded from studies. And if the tuition fees are not properly settled, this may lead to their repeat of the whole academic session, thus compounding the financial burden. More so, about 100 graduates are currently stranded in the United States of America, Malaysia, United Kingdom, and South Africa, awaiting their October 2016 to January 2017 allowances to enable them settle their bills and return back to Nigeria. Worried further that the students in the United Kingdom have planned to protest at the Nigerian High Commission any moment for non-payment of the tuition fees and allowances by the Amnesty Office, and that if the protest is carried out, it will definitely bring Nigeria to ridicule and oblivion before the Committee of Nations. Note further that the funds appropriated in 2016 appropriation was about 20 billion, and the Senate was magnanimous in appropriating the sum of 35 billion in a supplementary appropriation in late 2016, which went a long way in improving the funds appropriated for the program, whereby the sum of 40 billion has so far been released by the Federal Ministry of Finance, leaving a balance of the sum of 15 billion naira. Disturbed that the situation is becoming very serious and capable of truncating the lofty program, as tensions and threats are already palpable in the Niger Delta region among the beneficiaries of the program, onshore and offshore, which is capable of bringing the federal government of Nigeria into dispute nationally and internationally, and this has to be checked promptly. Observe that the program is in dire need of funds and is absolutely necessary to release the balance sum of 15 billion naira in the 2016 Appropriation Act so as to provide funds for the smooth running of the amnesty program. Accordingly resolved to direct the Honorable Minister of Finance to release the sum of 15 billion naira in the 2016 Appropriation Act for the funding of the amnesty program, and mandate the Committee on Niger Delta to investigate the circumstances leading to funds constraint besetting the amnesty program with a view to avoiding reoccurrence and report back within 2 weeks. I beg to move, Mr. President.
Senator Babakaka.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Babakaka Bashir Garbai. I represent Borno Central Senatorial District. I stand to second this very important motion moved by Senator Peter Waboshi. As narrated by Senator Peter Waboshi, in the year 2016 budget, the amnesty program was appropriated with the sum of 20 billion naira. And this distinguished Senate increased the budget by 35 billion naira in the environment brought by the executive. Up to this moment, some funds have not yet been released to amnesty program from the environment. Here we are, so much efforts have been made by the acting president in the Niger Delta with a view to bringing to an end the growing problem of insurgency. So because of that, so much improvement had been made. But the amnesty program is not able to live up to its responsibility because of the fact that so many of the students who are supposed to be receiving allowances both within and outside the countries have not received their allowances. So also ex-agitators, the allowances made for ex-agitators have not been paid. They are being owed up to about 5 months. So I would like to call on this distinguished Senate to support this motion moved by Senator Peter Waboshi, so that otherwise we are actually living on a cake of gunpowder. Something must be done in order to direct the Ministry of Finance to release these funds. Otherwise, they are going back to what they are used to. So because of that, I would actually like to call on my colleagues on this side and also both sides in order to support this very important motion.
Distinguished colleagues, this is a very straightforward motion. I think we just go to prayer. Prayer 1, direct the Honorable Minister of Finance to release the balance sum of 15 billion in the 2016 Appropriation Act for the funding of the amnesty program. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, mandate the Committee on Niger Delta to investigate the circumstances leading to funding constraints besetting the amnesty program with a view to avoiding reoccurrence and report back within 2 weeks. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Any additional prayer? Yes, Senator Baribe.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. My additional prayer is also to mandate the Committee on Niger Delta to investigate also, while alongside the constraints on funding, how certain persons shortchanged Abia State in terms of the amnesty recipients. Because right in the presence of the Vice President, it was confirmed that certain fictitious names that were not Abia names were put in the amnesty program in the name of Abia State.
Any seconder? Yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion with amendment that it should not only be Abia State but also Akwa Ibom. So the 2 states should be included. We were very surprised that when there was a committee in the 7th Senate that went to London to check the students of the amnesty program, and almost 1,000 of them, but about 15 or 16 of them who were said to come from my state were actually not from my state. So in seconding this motion, I want to urge that the investigation should be done to include Abia State and Akwa Ibom State. Thank you, Mr. President. So second.
Distinguished colleagues, additional prayer to mandate the committee to investigate how certain persons should change. What is it again, Senator Barry? Because this is your prayer. I don't know. Senator Barry, can you please give us your prayer again? Because it had been kind of diluted, terminated.
Mandate the committee to investigate how certain people, certain names that did not belong to both Abia and Akwa Ibom states surfaced as indigenes of those states in the amnesty program.
Okay, I'll read it to say that to mandate the committee to investigate cases of vaccination in all states concerned. Yes. Those in favor of this additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, let me thank additional prayer Senator Binna.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, my additional prayer is that the committee should be mandated also to go to those universities abroad to investigate, to investigate the money that is claimed to have sent to those schools, because some of this money may not go to those schools. And for instance, when the minister for investigation, what do they call that? Niger Data. When he came the other day, he was claiming that part of this money they said it is not true, and there's need for the committee to cross-check this money, and also, if possible, go to the school. I know how much those students are being paid.
Well, Senator Bin, I think that is covered in prayer 2. This, if you look at prayer 2, it covers that. Distinguished colleagues, I want to thank Senator Peter. Additional prayer, Senator Nkui.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we should add that we urge the benefits of the presidential amnesty program to exercise patience while government goes ahead to listen to their cries. I say this strongly because...
Yes, a prayer. Don't let us go into a debate. Just give us your prayer. All right. Okay. Thank you. Any second? Thank you. Colleagues, let me thank Senator Peter Waboshi for the motion. I think, as I said, it's a straightforward motion. Funds were appropriated. We even there was supplementary amount. The government has done so far in bringing peace to the area. And as we get to the end of the budget year, definitely Ministry of Finance will ensure that if agencies are getting close to 100% implementation, I think Niger Delta should be one of those that does get that. So the Minister of Finance should look into this matter and ensure release of funds as quick as possible before the end of the budget year. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the Conference Committee report on the Nigerian Air Force Institute of Technology Establishment Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the Senate and the House passed different versions of the Nigerian Air Force Institute of Technology Establishment Bill 2017. The Conference Committee of both houses have met and harmonized the differences in accordance with the Senate Standing Order 87. Mr. President, we wish to invite distinguished Senator Duro Fasheyi to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the conference report.
Senator Duro Fasheyi. Who is the Vice Chairman? Senator Wakil.
Your Excellency, sir, distinguished senators, my name is Senator Madam Ali Wakili. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Air Force Committee. I rise to move that the Senate do consider the Conference Committee report on the Nigerian Air Force Institute of Technology. I so move.
Senator Porker.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion ably moved by the mover of the motion. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do consider the Conference Committee report of the Nigerian Air Force Institute of Technology Bill 2017 SB 180. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yeah, Senator Wakil, present the report.
Your Excellency, sir, distinguished senators, you may recall that in the wisdom of this hallowed chamber, we did pass the Institute of Air Force Institute of Technology Kaduna Bill, and in line with our procedures, the other chamber did pass it, and we had to sit down to harmonize it. I'm happy to report that
Sorry, distinguished, where is the report? There's no report, just the bill that is there. Where is the conference report?
Sorry, it's unfortunate that the Secretariat are in Kaduna for continuous conference by the manager of the National Assembly, and my chairman is abroad. But when I spoke to him early this morning, if you look at the last page of the report, the bill, apparently the report is just 2 lines, because the conference adopted Hunka and Sinka everything the Senate passed on. The only difference which we agreed on was that we adopted the House of Representatives title of the bill. Those are the only things, but the sum in total, the Senate version was adopted, sir.
I think it's pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any objection? If not, let me put the question then. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the Conference Committee report on the Nigerian Air Force Institute of Technology Establishing etc. Bill 2017 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report on marine transport on the Nigerian Ports and Harbors Authority Act Amendment Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Wednesday, 11th January 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Ahmed Sani, chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Senator Ahmed Sani is not around. Okay. Is the report ready? I have to step this down.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in the absence of the chairman, I move that we step down the presentation of this report till another legislative day.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion moved by the leader that we step down the presentation of this report to another legislative day. That's so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that we do stand down this item to another legislative day say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Trade and Investment on the Consumer Protection Act Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Tuesday, 2nd February 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Fatima Raji Rasaki, chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report. Mr. President, I had a discussion with our chairman. She requests that we step down this presentation till another legislative day.
Why? Senator Raji, why?
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Fatima Raju Rasaki. I'm representing the Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in fact, we are not aware that the report, that the consideration of the report will be done today, because the secretary is not, they were not informed. So I therefore plead that the Senate do step down the consideration of the report till another legislative day.
When is that legislative date? So why I'm saying that, Mr. Senator Raji, this is one of our priority bills. And as such, we need to ensure that we pass on. Give us a date that we should be able to receive this report. Pardon? After the holidays. Okay, we'll not step it down again after that. That will be the last one. Okay, leader, move the motion so that. Thank you. You can move the motion for you to step down so it can be seconded and we can. Oh, you've done that. Are you seconded? Acting minority leader.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, thank you for this great opportunity to act in preparation to moving over as the majority leader. So I second the motion as moved by the leader that we step down the consideration of the report.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that we step down this item to another legislative, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I can't see Senator Ahmed Sani here, so I move that we step down the presentation of the next report till another legislative day.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, I second the motion that we step down the next item to another legislative day.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that we also step down this item to another legislative day, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Tuesday, 28 February 2017. Mr. President, we wish to invite very distinguished and ranking Senator Emmanuel Polka, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Senator Polka.
Mr. President, Senator Polka Emmanuel is my name, Bayelsa Central. Mr. President, dear colleagues, the bill for an act to establish the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants of Nigeria to provide for the control of its membership and to promote and foster the practice of the arts and science of management accountancy in Nigeria and for other purposes connected thereto, 2016 was read the first time on 17 March 2016. At its sitting of Tuesday, 31st May 2016, the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria concluded debate on the general principle of this bill. The Senate accordingly read the bill a second time and referred it to the Committee on Establishment and Public Service for further legislative actions. Background information in the bill. This bill was introduced in the 6th session of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The bill had undergone all legislative processes, including public hearing, and was read a third time and passed by the 6th Senate at its sitting of Thursday, 4th November 2010. The bill was transmitted to the 6th House of Representatives for concurrence, and the House undertook a clause-by-clause consideration of the same bill. but the bill was not read the third time till the end of that legislative session. The bill was subsequently introduced in the 7th National Assembly. It went through all legislative processes and was read a third time, and passed by both the Senate and the House of Representatives, and was subsequently transmitted to the Executive, but was not assented to before the end of the previous administration. Current legislative action. The committee noted that this bill had been passed by the two sections of the National Assembly, that is the 6th and 7th National Assembly. At these two sections, the bill had passed through in-depth and thorough legislative scrutiny and actions, including public hearing. The committee examined the various submissions, debates, and other legislative action undertaken on the bill by the 6th and 7th National Assembly, and noted that proper and thorough legislative action, scrutiny, and decision have been made on the bill, and accordingly resolved to accept and adopt the recommendation and decision made thereto. Pursuant to the above, the committee, after due consultation and conferment, accordingly accepted and adopted the version of the bill as passed by the 7th National Assembly, the 7th Senate, and House of Representatives. Recommendation. The committee hereby recommends that the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria do consider the bill for an act to establish the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants of Nigeria, to provide for the control of its membership, and to promote and foster the practice of the arts and science of management accountancy in the Federation, and for other purposes connected to 2017 for its passage. We so recommend, and I so move, Mr. President.
Any comments? If no comments, then let's leader move for us to resolve committee of the whole. Consent close by close.
I move that the Senate resolves the committee of the whole to consider the reports.
Mr. President, distinguished, and I second the motion that will resolve to the committee of whole to consider the reports.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that resolve into committee will say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, we have 23 clauses. Page 1. Yes, page 1, Senator Baribe.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. The provisions of the bill says a bill for an act to establish the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. And sir, my worry is this. what is the difference between the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants and ICANN and ANAM? We already have accounting bodies, two different accounting bodies covering all these different aspects of accounting. So when we come here to now want to concentrate on that, I think we should look at it very, very clearly, sir, to ask ourselves, why do we have to even consider this bill? Secondly, sir, this bill came up in the 5th, 6th, 7th, is now back in the 8th. And I need to know. I don't know why this is a recurring decimal. And if this is a recurring decimal and every time it fails, I think we should also give it a decent burial by not wasting our time and energy going through it. Let's just give it a burial and then let's know that this matter is ended.
This management accountant is just an aspect of accounting, which means that tomorrow. It's committee of whole. This is committee of the whole, so does it really matter which seat? Doesn't matter the seat. So, no point of order. It's Mr. President. Are you the one to decide? He's the secretary that will use that. Okay. So, Mr. President, I want to remind us that we have cost accountants, financial accountants, tax accountants. So what it means is that the moment we treat this, we have now further cannibalized the existing accounting associations that we already have in the country. So I don't know how this will add up to what we really want.
Point of order, sir. Let me give an explanation. Mr. President, dear colleagues. No, I'm not even coming on order. I'm not, no explanation. That is what I... No, he said, let me give an explanation. Let me respond to what my good friend, Senator Baribe, and my colleague mentioned. Unfortunately, Mr. President, dear colleague, we are not in second reading of this bill. And Mr. President, you could have even stopped my good friends who started debating on this bill. We are past that stage. Mr. President, no, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. Mr. President, if you give me an ear. Because we are past the second reading. And what they were saying were contributions they could have made on this floor when this bill was read the second time. Then, yes. No, if you finish, yes. Secondly, Mr. President.
What happened to your pocket today?
Yes. Secondly, Mr. President, the issue that this bill suffered that fix, the issue that the bill suffered the fate of, yes. Okay. Let me come.
Step down for homework.
That goal is to read weather, to read the weather, so to avoid turbulence, run. The weather I'm reading, I see turbulence ahead. So if you want us to go ahead into the turbulence, we can take it clause by clause. But I see turbulence. So as a I think my understanding is that you are rising up to say that you need some time. You are not that I should please stand this down to give you. I think that's what you are trying to tell me. When you. Thank you, Senator Parker, Leader of the Senate. Yes, he has withdrawn. Yes. Can you move for us to report progress?
I move that we revert to plenary and the chair reports progress. We should have given it a decent barrier.
Distinguished senators, I second the motion that the Senate do revert to plenary to report progress.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that will vote back to plenary progress, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Services Matters on the Chartered Institute of Mining and Account, and the bill was withdrawn. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, do you want to step it down? You want to step it down? Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues,
Where is the problem coming from?
after conferring with distinguished Senator Emmanuel Walker, the chairman, I move that we step down the presentation and consideration of the next report. I so move. Look at it.
Mr. Senate President, distinguished Senator, I second the motion that we step down the sixth item to another legislative day.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that will step down the next item, and the next item, another legislative day, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the eighth order of the day.
Your Grace. Order, please. Order, please.
The eighth order of the day is the presentation of the reports of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petition in respect of A, petition from Yahya Ibrahim Shunko against the Nigerian Army over his wrongful and abrupt compulsory retirement from the Nigerian Army in 1999 without reason.
Point of order. Point of order.
B, petition from YB Aminu on behalf of the next of kins of Alhaji Haruna Musa, deceased, of Koko Town, against the Nigerian Army for extrajudicial execution of APC supporters at Koko, Bese LGA, and Suru LGA, Kebbi State. C, petition from war-affected pioneer officer cadets of the Nigerian Air Force against the Nigerian Air Force for non-payment of gratuity and pensions by the Military Pensions Board. D, petition from Mr. Anoke Wilson Akuma against the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the West African Examination Council over unlawful termination of his appointment by the FRS on false assumption of forged certificates. And E, petition from Farouk Umar Ibrahim against the Nigerian Navy for alleged wrongful dismissal from the Navy. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, you will recall that these reports were laid on Thursday, 10th March 2016 and Wednesday, 14th December 2016, respectively. Mr. President, you may wish to invite very distinguished Senator Samuel Anyanwu to move the motion for the Senate to consider the report of the committee.
Senator Samayo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Sam Anyanwu. I represent the entire people of Imo East and Imo State. With the leave of Mr. President of the Senate and the distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate do consider the reports of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions in respect of A, petition from Yahya Ibrahim Shinko against Nigerian Army over his wrongful and abrupt compulsory retirement from the Nigerian Army in 1999 without reason. B. Petition from YB Aminu on behalf of the next of kings of Alhaji Haruna Amusa, Musa deceased of Cocoa Town against Nigerian Army for extrajudicial execution of APC supporters at Cocoa Base LGA and Zuru LGA KB State. C. Petition from war-affected pioneer officer cadets of Nigerian Air Force against Nigerian Air Force for non-payment of gratuity and pensions by the Military Pensions Board. D. Petition from Mr. Anoke Wesin Akuma against the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the West African Examination Council over unlawful termination of his appointment by the FIRS on false assumption of forged certificates. And E. Petition from Farouk Umar Ibrahim against Nigerian Navy for alleged wrongful dismissal from the Navy. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Shusani. First, you need to go to your good.
Yeah, I'm Comrade Senator Shusani. I do second the motion ably raised by Senator San Amiyaw. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do consider the reports of the Committee on Ethics, Privilege and Public Petition in respect of the petitions as listed by the chairman say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yeah, Senator Samayan, present.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues, once again, my name is Senator Sam Anyanwu. I represent Imo East. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the student will recall that on Wednesday, 25th May 2016, rising on Order 41, Senator Suleiman O. Unki, Kaduna North, drew the attention of the Senate to a petition from his constituent, Mr. Yahya Ibrahim Shinko, against the Nigerian Army over his wrongful and abrupt compulsory retirement from the Nigerian Army in 1999 without reason, and urged the Senate to look into the matter. In line with Order 41.3, the Senate referred the matter to the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions for detailed investigation. Mr. President, colleagues, since everybody has a copy of this, I'll seek your leave that I'll take the observation and findings of this petition. Item 5.0, page 4. After carefully studying the submissions of both parties, the committee noted as follows. A, that Yahya Ibrahim Shinko was a lieutenant in the Nigerian Army and was demoted to second lieutenant from lieutenant after being tried and found guilty in a general court martial in 1996 for desertion. B, that the army later retired him because his services were no longer required. C, that the petitioner challenged his retirement at the Federal High Court, Kaduna, in 2004 and got judgment that the retirement was null and void. D, that the petitioner also went to the Federal High Court, Abuja, for the execution of the judgment, but the case was struck out on the 21st October 2014 for want of diligent prosecution. And E, that Mr. Yahya Ibrahim Shinko was approaching the Senate for the execution of the court judgment, which was entered in his favor by the Federal High Court, Kaduna, in 2004. Recommendation. In view of the findings above, the committee hereby recommends as follows: that the Senate should direct the petitioner, Yahya Ibrahim Shinko, to approach the Federal High Court to enforce the judgment it entered in his favor against the Nigerian Army in 2004, as the Senate is not an appendage of the court. Mr. President, colleagues, on behalf of the committee, I thank you for your support and cooperation and opportunity to serve.
Distinguished colleagues, I think this is pretty straightforward. To those in favor of the recommendation as 6-0, that the petitioner shall approach the Federal High Court as the Senate to enforce the judgment entered in his favor. Those in favor of the recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, present your second report, please.
The second report, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The Senate will recall that on Tuesday, 24th November 2015, rising on Order 41, Senator Yahya A. Abdullahi, KB North, drew the attention of the Senate to two petitions from Y.B. Aminu on behalf of Nest of Kings of Al-Haji Haruna Musa, deceased, Mohammed Mahula, deceased, of Cocoa Town on the one hand, and Madam Hassan Bayan Dusu, Samaila Muhammadu, Malam Numa, and Muhammadu Bayan Dusu, All Progressive Congress, APC, Suru Local Government Area of KB State, and Nest of Kings of Salihu Hassan, deceased, Omar Samaila, deceased, on the order, of Dayan Dus against the Nigerian Army for extrajudicial execution of APC supporters at Cocoa Town, Cocoa Bese Local Government Area, and Bayan Duse Village, Suru Local Government Area, KB State, and urge the Senate to look into the matter. In line with Order 413, the Senate referred the matter to the Committee on Ethics for detailed investigative investigation. I want to go to, Mr. President, I don't want to waste time on committee. In the observation, these two petitions were combined together because one person presented the petition. But in our findings, as the committee was settling down to examine the submissions of the petition, the committee discovered that the petition was not properly addressed because it was not addressed to the President of the Senate, Federal Republic of Nigeria, and drew the petitioner's attention to it, which he accepted. Consequently, the petitioner was advised to withdraw the petition and rewrite accordingly. In our recommendation, Mr. President, because the petition was not properly addressed to the Senate President, it should be struck out. The petitioner be asked to rewrite the Senate if he was still interested in pursuing the case. That's the recommendation of the committee, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I do appreciate the report of the committee and do also note that they knocked out the two petitions on technical grounds, really. That's what the whole thing amounts to. But I plead with the Senate. We will go back and do the right thing, but the issues really are that human lives are involved in this issue, and human lives are sacred. We will go back, readdress this thing, and I hope that when we represent these petitions, they will receive due consideration of this highly respected Senate. Thank you.
All right, I'll put the question then. Those in favor that the recommendation is on page 5, those in favor of that recommendation shall say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Samayan, please take note, the petition will come back properly addressed, and please see that when it does come back, it is dealt promptly. Thank you. Next report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. colleagues, the next petition is the report of the Committee on the Senate. The Senate will recall, Mr. President, on Wednesday, 2nd March 2016, President Order 41, Senator Ben Mero Bruce, Bayelsa East, drew the attention of the Senate to a petition from the war-affected pioneer officer cadets of the Nigerian Air Force against Nigerian Air Force for non-payment of gratuity and pension by the Military Pensions Board, and urge the Senate to look into the matter. In line with Order 413, the Senate referred the matter to the Committee on Ethics for detailed investigative investigation. Mr. President, I would like to go to observation and findings because the matter is very straightforward. Observations and findings, item 5.0, page 5, page 6. A holistic study of the facts provided by the petitioners and the respondent showed that 1. Officer cadets only receive allowances and not salaries. As such, there was no basis for the calculation of gratuity and pension. 2. Clearly, they were not entitled to pension and gratuity. 3. The pardon granted by Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria was pardon for fighting on the side of Biafra, not permission to change status of any officer from being a cadet to a commissioned officer. But 4, there's an element of injustice in the matter in that the Air Force Council did not sit to regularize pending issues on commissioning of the 43 cadets. The committee understood that this was not their own fault, their own making, and should be looked into. Recommendations. After thoroughly examining the issues at the stake, the committee wishes to recommend as follows. 1. that though there was overwhelming evidence that officer cadets were not entitled to gratuity and pension on separation from Nigerian Air Force because they only collect allowances and not salaries. The Senate do urge the federal government to compel the Air Force Council to sit to take another look at the matter with a humanitarian view to determine whether they qualify to have been commissioned or not. And two, where they qualify, some form of compensation or the other be approved for them. Conclusion, Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, I want to thank the Senate for giving the opportunity to serve. Thank you, Mr. President.
Esteemed colleague, I think this one too is straightforward. So let me go to recommendation 1. Oh, okay. Senator Jiang.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Jonah David Dunn, representing Plateau North Senatorial District. The recommendation made here is against the Air Force Act, which was passed by the National Assembly. You cannot be commissioned on compassionate ground. If you are not qualified for commission, you are not qualified. And if you are not commissioned as a cadet, as it was rightly pointed out, you only collect allowances, you are not entitled to pension and gratuity. And we amend the Nigerian Air Force Act, this recommendation cannot hold water. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Sama, you want to respond to that?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to draw the attention of my colleagues, Senator Jai, on our findings and the first recommendation. I said that though there was overwhelming evidence that the officer cadets were not entitled to gratuity and pension on separation from Nigerian Air Force base, Air Force, because they only collect allowances and not salaries. The Senate do urge the federal government to compel the Air Force Council to sit because there was no sitting from the interaction with the Chief of Air Staff, who came personally. He agreed that they don't have records. But that was why we put up a rider that the Senate do urge the federal government to compel the Air Force Council to sit, to take another look at the matter with a humanitarian view to determine whether they qualify. We did not make a categorical statement on this issue because we cannot compare them because the Act says they're not qualified because what they're asking for is gratuity and pensions, and we have been able to, in our finding, that they are not entitled. But in terms of their being commissioned, because they said the Air Force did not sit, it is the Air Force Council that have to determine because they never sat on this matter, and that was why. And the man gave us that they are going to look at it on a professional ground. But for our report, that they are not entitled to pensions and gratuity, which they were asking for.
Yeah, but I think that's what Senator Jang is saying, that, we're confusing the matter. If they're not entitled to it, they're not entitled to it. But it seems the report is like this way and that way and this way and that way, and I think your first report has made it very clear that they're not entitled to it. And unless the law has been amended, they cannot. So what are we throwing back for the council to do when they don't have the powers, the legal backing to do it? I don't understand. Yeah.
No, Chairman, Mr. President, this is a report of the committee and it's subject to deliberation, which the Senate is doing now. The recommendation accepted by the Senate is the submission of this committee.
Any other comments on this before I put the question? Yeah, I'll put the question and recommendation 6.1. Those in favor of recommendation 6.1 say aye. Those against say nay. Nays have it. Recommendation 6.2. Those in favor of recommendation 6.2 say aye. Those against say nay. Nay has it. Thank you very much. Chairman, your other report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. The Senate will recall that on Wednesday, 27th January 2016, Rising Order 41, Senator Sonny Obuji, Ebonyi South, drew the attention of the Senate to a petition from his constituent, Mr. Anoke Wesin Akuma, against the Federal Inland Revenue Services and the West African Examination Council over unlawful termination of his appointment by the FRS on false assumption of forged certificate and urge the Senate to look into the matter. In line with Order 41.3, the Senate referred the matter to the Committee on Ethics. Mr. President, I would like us to go to observation and findings because this matter has been concluded.
Go ahead.
Item 50, page 4. After carefully studying the submissions of both parties, the committee noted as follows. A, that the wrong arrangement of the name of Anoke Wilson Akuma in his WAEC result as noticed an online platform was the reason for the termination of his appointment. B, that on noticing the problem, the petitioner immediately wrote WAEC, which also acted promptly to correct the mistake. C, that Mr. Anoke Wilson Akuma has been reinstated by the FRS and has resumed duty on the 21st of July 2016 before the committee's scheduled hearing of this petition, and that the combined prompt actions of FRS and WAEC, which gave Anoke Wilson Akuma his job back, deserve commendation by the Senate. Recommendation. In view of the findings above, the committee hereby recommends as follows: that the Senate do commend the Federal Inland Revenue Services and the West African Examination Council for the steps taken and for the prompt resolution of the matter and the subsequent reinstatement of Anoke Wilson Akuma to the service of Federal Inland Revenue Services. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, the matter has been concluded from the report. The petitioner has been reinstated back to office, and this matter has been closed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, I think it's pretty straightforward. The recommendation 6, that the Senate do commend the FIRS and WAEC for steps taken for the prompt resolution of the matter. Those in favor of recommendation 6 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, Senator Samayan. And your last report?
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. The Senate will recall that on Wednesday, 27 April 2016, rising under 41, Senator Gabiru Gaya, Kano South, drew the attention of the Senate to a petition from Farouk Omar Ibrahim against Nigerian Navy for alleged wrongful dismissal from the service and urged the Senate to look into the matter. In line with Order 41.3, the Senate referred the matter to the Committee on Ethics for detailed legislative investigation. Mr. President, I want us to go to observations and findings, and that will be in page 5. Page 5, item 5.0. After going through the submissions, the committee found as follows. 1, that the petitioner, Farouk Omar Ibrahim, sought for transfer from Nigerian Navy Service, Lagos, to Nigerian Air Defense Academy, Kaduna, and it was granted. 2, that he opted for voluntary retirement first before he was dismissed from the Navy. 3, that he left his duty to follow up his voluntary retirement letter at Naval Headquarters Abuja without approval. 4, that after his desertion, he was arrested, detained, tried, and dismissed by the Nigerian Navy. And 5, that the petitioner had gone to 2 courts of competent jurisdictions, Federal High Court, Kaduna, and Court of Appeal, Kaduna, and his case was dismissed by the 2 courts, respectively, with the same judgment. Having fully heard and considered the submissions of the petitioner, the committee recommends that the Senate should sustain the dismissal of the Farouk Omar Ibrahim by the Nigerian Navy for decision. Conclusion, Mr. President, we don't thank you. The committee want to thank you and the 3 colleagues for the opportunity to serve. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, I think this also is pretty straightforward. So I'll put the recommendation that the Senate do sustain the dismissal of Farouk Umar Ibrahim by Nigerian Army for decision. Those in favor of recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, having successfully concluded today's proceedings on the order paper, I hereby move that the Senate do adjourn till Tuesday, 11th April 2017 at 10 a.m. prompt.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, I second the motion ably moved by the leader that the House stand adjourned till Tuesday, 11th of April 2017.
Distinguished colleagues, before I put the question, just some announcements. Bill for conference, Bill on the National Assembly Budget and Establishment Office, Establishment, etc., Bill 2016. The membership has Senator Polka as chairman, Senator John Eno, Senator Baribe, Senator Yaya Abdullahi, Senator Nazif, and Senator Mowara as members. The senators should please meet with their counterparts in the House of Representatives for conference. Bill for conference, Currency Conversion Freezing Order Act Amendment Bill. Concurrence. That the Senate do constitute a conference committee and has Senator Adibaya as chairman, Senator Kurufi, Senator Adesoji Akombi, Senator Abubakar Amadu, Senator Philip Gunka, and Senator Stella Adua. Again, the Senate should meet with the counterpart in the House of Representatives for concurrence. And the last one is the Bill for Conference for Dangerous Drugs Act Amendment Bill 2016 for concurrence. The Senate has Senator Lidani as chairman, Senator Gunka, Senator Olashadra, Senator Kabira Marafa, Senator Foster, and Senator Unkui as members. They should please meet with their counterparts in the House of Representatives for conference. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate hereby adjourn to Tuesday, 11th April 2017 at 10 a.m. say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is accordingly adjourned to Tuesday, 11th April 2017 at 10 a.m. prompt.